we're back at it again with another Battlefront update. Today was the release of the long-awaited community transmission for the massive Rise of Skywalker expansion content that we'll be seeing in the game later in December. This new transmission outlined what new reinforcements, skins, and maps we'll be getting, as well even new heroes in early 2020, which the answer for that may likely shock and surprise you, but we'll get to that. As always, we'll be covering all of this and more in today's video. And before we get into any of that, but a quick reminder, as if you do like these type of videos, then do remember to give it a like to show your support for not only this update series, but also the content within it. With that out of the way, let's get into it. Jumping straight into the meat and potatoes of today's big news that we got, DICE has officially announced the arrival of the Celebration Edition for Battlefront 2. In short, the Celebration Edition is a special version of the game that will deliver instant access to every hero appearance, trooper appearance, emote, voice line, and victory poses available in Battlefront 2 that can be unlocked with credits or crystals, including of course the new content coming in December with the Rise of Skywalker update. The exact specifics for this edition are as follows. You'll get the game with all the past and future free updates, 150 plus appearances including 6 legendary appearances, 100 plus emotes, and 90 plus victory poses. However, what's not included in the Celebration Edition is experience and star card progression, as this will need to be unlocked through regular gameplay. You also won't get any of the Last Jedi appearances for Kylo and Rey, as those will remain exclusive for players who pre-ordered or got the Elite Trooper Deluxe Edition back in 2017. And lastly, you won't get any customization options that can only be obtained through special in-game events such as Leia, Princess of Alderaan, or the Farm Boy Luke appearances. The Celebration Edition launches tomorrow, December 5th, and will be available as a digital download across all 3 platforms: Xbox One, PlayStation 4, and PC via Origin. If you're new to Battlefront 2, then the Celebration Edition will retail at $39.99. But for those who already own the Battlefront 2 base game and wish to upgrade, you're gonna be able to do so for $24.99. And there's good news for anyone of the Origin Access Premier, because the Battlefront 2 Celebration Edition will be included as part of your ongoing subscription. Oh, and it should also be pointed out that the artwork for the Celebration Edition will also become the standard in-game artwork for all versions of the game now. This has been something talked about to happen for a while now, and it seems that DICE have been waiting until the Rise of Skywalker update to finally pull the trigger on this. I mean, it's a pretty good looking artwork, so it's nice to know that we're gonna be able to see it in the game no matter what version we have. Now for the news on the actual Rise of Skywalker content that will be making its way later into the game in December, as we've also got full details on that as well. Starting out with the new planet, which many have speculated on what exactly this would be, and from our last video we learned that it definitely wouldn't be Pasana, the new desert planet, as instead today it's now been revealed that it will actually be Ajan Kloss, the brand new jungle planet seen in all the trailers for Rise of Skywalker. This is where the Resistance sets up their base during the movie and Rey undergoes some more Jedi training from Leia. For whatever reason, DICE didn't mention what the actual planet is called in their transmission, which is a little weird, as it's not a spoiler and already something revealed by Lucasfilm, so because they didn't say it, I'm saying it for them. Anyways, in terms of the game, we'll first be seeing the smaller version of Ajan Kloss, as in December it will only be available for 2 modes, co-op and heroes versus villains. However, fortunately in 2020 we'll be getting a larger version of Ajan Kloss in sequel trilogy Capital Supremacy and in Instant Action, along with Jakku being the second large sequel era map to feature in those modes. As for reinforcements, we'll be getting not 2, but a surprise total of 4 in December, split evenly between the Resistance and the First Order. Joining the ranks of the First Order this December will be the Sith Trooper, a merciless trooper excelling in speed and advanced weaponry to hunt down and destroy anyone that stands in their way. Seeing as I already broke the news that Sith Troopers were confirmed to arrive in the last video thanks to the leak we got, so this isn't really a big surprise or anything like that, but what we do know now that we didn't know before is that they'll be their very own separate reinforcement unit. rather than the skin for the Assault class that some were speculating that they may be. Alongside the Sith Trooper will be the First Order Jet Trooper that has received new training and jetpack equipment to achieve dominance over the Resistance. You'll be able to achieve aerial superiority over the Resistance by using their grenade attachment enhanced blaster rifle as you dodge, hover, and maneuver through the air. Now taking up arms for the Resistance will be the Gunner and the Spy unit. Unfortunately, details on these two are relatively sparse, and all we know from DICE is that these two will each be a new alien species seen in the Rise of Skywalker. I have no idea what these aliens will be or look like, but the actual unit types have already been revealed in the sequel trilogy thus far. For instance, the Resistance Gunners appear in The Last Jedi operating the Resistance Bombers, with Paige, who was Rose Tico's sister, being the gunner that we see sacrifice herself to take down the First Order Dreadnought. The same applies for the Resistance Spy, where we can look to none other than V. Marati, who was the main Resistance spy operating on Batuu at Galaxy's Edge. Considering that we know both of these will be an alien species rather than humans, I'm guessing the actual suits, the uniform of the gunner and the spy may still remain the same. Another interesting thing I do want to point out is that remember Benoit's new prophecy we talked about in another video? Well, it actually has turned out that this prophecy is referring to the Resistance Gunner and the Spy, surprisingly. As for why he's so excited about these two specifically, we have no idea, but should be finding out more about them in the next CT dropping just before the major update does. As for anyone wondering if the new reinforcement units will be completely new or existing classes, Benoit has now confirmed that they will all be classes already existing in the game. As for what, we don't know. I'd assume the Resistance Spy will most likely be an infiltrator, and the Resistance Gunner may be an enforcer, as the Gunners never wore jetpacks in the movies, so I don't see them being an aerial class. While the Sith Trooper may be either an enforcer or infiltrator, and the Jet Trooper will obviously be an aerial, giving the First Order two almost identical aerial reinforcements, which is surprising as everyone pretty much assumed the new Jet Trooper would simply be a skin for the existing First Order Rocket Trooper already in the game, but obviously now we know that won't be the case. Co-op will also be a big focus in December's Rise of Skywalker update, with the sequel trilogy being finally playable on co-op across the following maps: Takadana, Starkiller Base, and along Ajan Kloss and Jakku as mentioned before, making a total of 4 sequel trilogy co-op maps. As for appearances, as mentioned in my last video, there will be 3 new hero appearances on the way. Rey, Finn, and Kylo Ren will all be receiving a brand new appearance based on their Rise of Skywalker outfits. These appearances will be available to everyone who owns the Celebration Edition, and also ready to be bought with crystals or credits. The release date for the Rise of Skywalker update will go live on December 17th, with one exception being the new planet Ajan Kloss, as that will only join the in-game map rotation starting December 20th. Now with everything that we'll be getting in the Rise of Skywalker update in December all covered, we also have news on further content that we'll be getting in January 2020. As mentioned before, Ajan Kloss and Jakku will be playable in both Capital Supremacy and in Instant Action in January, making those maps the first for the sequel trilogy in those modes. According to DICE, the Resistance MC-85, aka the Raddus, and the First Order Resurgent class Star Destroyer will be the capital ships appearing in Capital Supremacy. Which, you know, makes sense because the Resistance only had one single capital ship, so DICE didn't really have much of a choice here. It was either gonna be the Raddus or nothing at all. But that's not all, as in January we'll also be getting 2 brand new heroes, and take this in. They're gonna be BB-8 and BB-9E. And yeah, as a refresher, the BB-9E is the First Order BB unit that first appeared in The Last Jedi, and I guess it's kind of like BB-8's rival now, or at least it was, or it's gonna be in the game. But yeah, I know, 2 incredibly outlandish choices, and I actually had to take a second look at the community transmission when reading it, as I wasn't sure if this was legit or if DICE were having a laugh. And apparently it's not a joke, not at all. with Benoit stressing online that the droid heroes are legit and apparently are fun to play as too. Considering they are coming out next year, we're going to have to wait until then to really find out more about them. However, that's not to say we currently don't know anything about them, as we do, just a little bit. And that information comes straight from Dennis Brandville, who according to him, the droids will be support characters. Neither is very likely to defeat another hero or villain in a straight up 1v1. Although if you're playing a low health Kylo, watch out for a BB-8 rush. Again, DICE can't wait for us to try them out, as they believe we'll love them. And Ben also brought up an interesting point when someone told him that nobody asked for the droid heroes. And he replied that people felt the exact same way about Dengar too back in the day, and now everyone loves him after trying him out. So really, who knows, maybe they will be fun to play as, but I doubt many will be picking to play as them over, say, a lightsaber hero. They've really got to be good or really fun to play as for someone to, say, pick a BB-8 over an Anakin. Now, as for my own personal thoughts on the December update as a whole, it does seem somewhat underwhelming if I'm being honest. We were told that this was the largest expansion that DICE have ever made for the game, and I guess I kind of expected more? Let me explain. For starters, we aren't getting sequel-era capital supremacy or instant action in December. Having yet another First Order jetpack unit seems kind of boring, and I would have preferred that they had chosen one of the more unique looking planets in the Rise of Skywalker over the more dull Agen Kloss. I mean, we've already got Takodana and Yavin 4 as the forest/jungle planets in the game, so do we really need a third one? I myself would have rather see us get more unique looking planets, like Kijimi that seems like it would have been a cool snowy urban map, or even whatever planet Palpatine seems to be on. We also know from the trailers that actual battles will take place on those planets too, unlike Agen Kloss, so again, I'm not sure why they went with this less interesting choice. I'm guessing it was maybe because it was easier to design and they could reuse assets from Yavin 4, because I really can't think of any other good reason on why they chose Agen Kloss over the ones I mentioned. I'm also still not sold on the BB units as new heroes over, say, someone like Poe or Hux. From what we've seen so far, Poe looks like he's going to be doing a lot of ground combat in Rise of Skywalker, so having him as a blaster hero would have made sense. Especially considering that John Boyega confirmed that Oscar Isaac himself really wanted to be in the game as a ground hero. Meanwhile, General Hux I think would have made a great choice as a support healing hero. Especially seeing as the dark side is really desperate for a healer, and I could see Hux play that role. And as for Dennis to say that the reason DICE didn't include him because nobody asked for Hux seems disingenuous and kind of hypocritical, as Benoit used the exact same excuse on why we should get the droids despite nobody asking for them. And the funny truth is, people have been asking for Poe and Hux as new sequel-era heroes since The Last Jedi. But to me, it seems that making the droid heroes was far more easier of a job for DICE, as it required less 3D modeling and animating, especially seeing how much detail really goes into making those human heroes, along with not needing to do any voice acting as well. Besides, once they make BB-8, they can easily change its textures to create BB-9E, and that's already a second hero made with minimal work. And remember, because DICE still has a small team working on the game, I can see why this was the more attractive solution for them to do. Truth be told, I'm somewhat disappointed, but I'll leave my final reservations on the BB heroes until I try them out for myself, and see if they're really worth it in the end like DICE say they are. Who knows, maybe I'll love them, so yeah, anything's possible. Also, is it just me, or is it strange that we aren't getting anything new Palpatine related here despite him being the main baddie in the new movie? I mean, a new skin or something would have been cool to see. And on a related note, it's kind of baffling to see we're getting absolutely nothing for new Starfighter content, as both the First Order and the Resistance are still lacking a bomber ship to this day. And seeing how we now have bombers for both factions and canon, but have DICE not add those in during this update feels like another missed opportunity. I mean heck, even to get a Starfighter Assault map featuring the main battle from the movie, with all those Imperial Star Destroyers would have been enough to get me back into that mode. Also, it's got to be said, because of DICE delaying half of the Rise of Skywalker content to January, this has also now resulted in original Trilogy content being delayed too. And if the original Trilogy content is getting delayed, then guess what? So will the Clone Wars content with Ahsoka and Ventress. Again, because of DICE's small team that they have to work with, it's become very apparent that they got a bit too over-ambitious with the Rise of Skywalker content, and it's now resulted in delays in the other content that we all desperately wanted. Now, I'm not hating on this or anything like that, merely pointing out facts, and I wholeheartedly understand DICE's position here. Because at the end of the day, I still very much appreciate that they are creating new content for us, and something is always better than nothing. At the same time, I do always praise them when they do good, but will critique them like anyone else on areas that do need improvement, as that's kind of my job here. I don't want to be too overly positive and just ignore all the problems, and at the same time I don't want to be all too negative and ignore all the positives. I'd rather be a balance of both. So with that said, remember the celebration art that was leaked by the PlayStation blog back on Tuesday? Well, we do have to point out DICE's rather sneaky last-minute edit here, as in that image we saw the Death Star 1, and I, like many people, assumed that this meant we'd be getting the Death Star 1 trench run from Battlefront 2015 to Battlefront 2. Well, that's just it, because in the celebration art that DICE released today, we can now very easily see that they've removed the Death Star 1 and replaced it with the Death Star 2. I can only assume this was the result of them realizing that they've made a mistake, and didn't want people thinking that we'd be getting something that we're actually not. So I suppose you can make the argument here that it was maybe good that the Celebration Edition art was leaked, as otherwise they would have had to deal with an entire new Droideka/environmental clutter situation, just this time with the Death Star 1. On the flip side, they for whatever reason didn't change the New Hope version of the Stormtrooper helmet in the new art. So I still suspect we're gonna be getting that when the original Trilogy content does eventually drop in 2020. Either that or DICE are going to have to edit this image for a second time. It should also be said that we've still yet to have received DICE's reasoning for the November update's delay into early December. I figured today might have been the day when we were going to be told on what that was, but like with Tuesday, this wasn't mentioned at all today. And I seriously doubt we'll ever get the reasoning for that at this point. Finally, a lot of folks have been asking around regarding the current status of Crate, as it seems to be the only sequel-era map that has been excluded from DICE's plans for co-op, capital supremacy, and instant action. According to Ben, Crate still seems to be very much on the table as a future possibility, but for reasons not disclosed, making it compatible with the mentioned modes has been problematic. Now, I wouldn't say that we're never gonna see Crate be eventually added in, as it's one of the few unique looking sequel-era maps. However, judging how DICE do things, it's hard to say on just how long Crate will remain to stay on DICE's priority list. But that'll do it for this Battlefront update. And as always, if you enjoyed this video, please like, share, and subscribe to the channel to not only support it, but keep up with Star Wars news, gaming, and canon lore released every week. And consider following me on Twitter and Facebook to never miss out on the latest Star Wars content. Thanks for watching, and may the Force be with you.